Hello everybody, this is NW Jordan, your host of ArchNation, and today we're going to be talking about what is architecture and design school actually like. Let's dive into it. The short answer is it's complicated, it's complex, but I'm going to try to break down the beginning pieces of it, which break down to the fundamentals that you'll be learning, its design-oriented process, as well as its project-based blocks or semesters. For this question here, you need to decide what type of architecture or designer that you're interested in becoming. I get this question asked a lot. I see it asked a lot online. You may start out in the architecture field, but you may end up favoring graphic design. For example, you may end up an interior design student, but actually trade over to architecture. Each have its own subtleties and similarities, but they vary greater and greater as each career path diverges with time. That doesn't even include career trees of governmental military architecture or naval architectural design. That's a little bit more than this video, so we'll get into that at another time. Each architecture and design school's studio vary different, but the fundamentals are fairly the same. Each semester you'll be given one or multiple projects to which you'll have to solve a problem through design or generate design based on the needed programmatic pieces. One example of this could be your city or a private investor plans to start a revitalization effort on the historic part of your town. So they need to understand what parts of their site must remain, what parts can be updated to, modern and contemporary design elements. They need to understand that the program has certain needs. So in this case of this historic revitalization, the program needs an outdoor communal park, a gym which will double as a theater and an assembly space, living quarters for 5 families, a daycare, and retail space for 5 tenants. All that would include the program's parts that you'll be starting from. As a designer, you need to design answers for questions like, what will it look like? What parts of it will be new versus old? How will the people move through the space? How will the vehicles travel around the space? What site issues do we have to deal with? What elements must remain where they are or retain certain features? How will the water drain from the site? You must understand things like what measures need to be taken to accommodate for handicapped or disabled individuals, ADA. What plant life will be on the site or needed based on that geographical location. Do you need plants that are good in dry climate that don't need to be watered very often? Are you looking for plants that don't shed as often? Are you looking for plants as a repellent of an insect species? All of this is very important, but even more important than that is how will the design documentation look like? This is what you're ultimately chasing after each project, because these documentation will be needed for the clients. They will be needed for the city. More often than not, they're needed for the city. This way you can get proper permitting and clearance and approvals. This is just some of the things that you'll be critiqued upon during your studio. So all the questions of, what will it look like? How old? What do you need? What needs to be old? What's new? All of those will be critiqued during your studio. Now, simply put, the studio is a design-oriented space where we solve problems as both individuals and as a group. You'll most likely be granted a space where you'll be able to work and design and even store your stuff. So you'll have your models on your desk, you'll have your work on the wall, you'll have your books and references nearby. In the first 2 years in particular, you'll learn the fundamentals of architecture and design. Some schools call this modes of communication or entry studio, where students are pressed to design from abstraction. All right, now this is both a scary moment as well as an amazing one. Mainly being is that when you're paired with a professor, they may ask you to for example, create a building based on a song. Then they may ask you to take that song and quantify elements or pieces of that song. Then create an abstract art piece based on your data. And then now that you have this data, to create basic forms and 3D shapes and elements to which you can use to finally create an experience for your building, to which you can use to finally create an experience for your building. Each studio is usually project-based and can sometimes have multiple projects being worked on throughout the semester. Don't get worried though, because it's all a part of the process. Overall, architecture and design school will try to give you work in a variety of areas. So you may work on a library, a rehab center, community housing, a museum. You may design a product. You may work on a park with installations, a church, and much more. So they try to mix it up. And one of the things that you most often hear in school from your professors is that they'll say, be more free or be more creative, be more daring and risk taking, because while in school, you'll have the opportunity to work and do things to which you won't necessarily work or do while in an architecture firm. So you may be able to make a extremely expensive 10-story apartment complex in school, but at your local firm, let's say you're stationed on a bathroom or a facade or a patio, you may not get that big, exciting design that you hope for right away. And finally, we must talk about the critics. Critics will be your best friend and worst enemy. Some critics will see your work as revolutionary, while others will see your work as too bland. Some critics will understand your process of ideas and design, while others will see you as a madman of design. Point is that as designers, you must realize that you'll never be able to make all of your critics happy, which is tough. Especially when a critique may have, for example, the dean on it, a local architect, your professor of even your previous years, on top of having school faculty and your peers in the crowd who are all also able to ask you questions. This may be something they're confused about, something that doesn't make sense, something that looks a bit weird, something that doesn't flow together. All of this, your panel and audience of critics can present to you. Now, we talked about a lot here in this video, so as a summary, and the best advice that I can give you is to take your time and to design through your issues one at a time as they come up in the project. Please, please, please do not wait until last minute in school nor in your firm. Don't wait until the night before or the week before. Try to have a bigger buffer for you to be able to design and work from. On top of having and referring to historical references, it's much easier to say, I did this based on that, than it is to say, I did this just because. A lot of teachers and professors and designers don't always see that as a valid excuse. They want to see the process. They want to see your thinking. They want to see your creativity and approach to things. This way, even if you aren't referring to anything, they can refer to your process, or you can refer to your process, which will give you a bit of grounding for your critiques. Now, hopefully, my friends, you've learned a lot here and have a slightly better understanding of what you're in for when it comes to design and architecture school. Thanks for watching. And until next time, my friends, this is NW Jordan Nation signing out.